Hi, this is Paul Sanneman from Business Success Tips, where I'm going to teach you how to make more money in less time and have more fun. And I am a little intimidated by our guest today, which is Sarah Gershman, who's an executive speaking coach from GreenRoom Speakers, because she's going to critique this whole way I'm doing it. And I'm sure I need a lot of help with my speaking abilities. So here we go.
You're doing great, Paul.
Okay, I feel good already. So Sarah, tell me exactly what you do and who you do it for.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I run a company that helps people learn how to be better communicators and helps them give presentations and pitches and how to speak in public. And I work with people at all different levels of their companies, whether it's managers or the C-suite level, on how to communicate in ways that better help the audience you're trying to speak to.
Okay, so you work for big companies like Microsoft and huge companies, right?
Yes.
So the people listening to this are two guys in a truck, or sort of plus two guys in a truck, right? Maybe contractors in a million to 10 or 15 million. So why do they need someone like you?
So I would imagine, right, for the people that are listening right now, your whole job is helping people, right? You're helping people build things, you're helping people make their homes more beautiful.
Right,
You're helping people with the things that matter the most to them, is their surroundings, their space, and it's the things that they definitely don't know how to do themselves.
right.
So you're very needed. And what can sometimes get in our way is that when we have to communicate, whether you're giving an update on a project or you're explaining why you're the right fit for this project, that when we don't communicate clearly in a way that helps the audience, then you can't be as helpful to them in your work. And so I help people just like you be able to communicate better so that people understand why they should hire you. And they also understand all the different ways that you're helping them. And they also understand
How would that differ from like sales training?
That's a great question. I think they're related, right? I think if in a good sales training, what I think sales is really about, it's I like to frame sales as helping people solve problems. That your whatever your services are a solution to someone's problem.
Right.
And if you can focus on solving that problem instead of on selling yourself or selling your services, then you're going to be much more helpful. And I think ultimately that's what I help people do, is help people use their voice and communicate messages that are helpful to people.
So I have several clients in the past that have been uncomfortable telling people that it's going to cost way more than they thought. It's going to take way longer than they thought. And another problem is sometimes people don't want to pay their bill, right? They're trying to get them to pay their bill. So I had a guy the other day who was a negotiation coach kind of thing, same kind of thing. So you've got difficult situations where you're trying to deal with a client and you're going to say, this is going to cost more and take longer than you thought. And people avoid that until it's too late. Then the client owes them like $100,000 and the client's not going to pay them because they didn't think it was a good job. And then hopefully it doesn't end up in court, but it's always messy. All right. Yeah. So as a speech coach, how can you help people not get in that situation?
So first of all, it's great to recognize how hard those conversations are, and that's why we avoid them. We avoid these conversations because they're uncomfortable. We avoid them because we don't want to hurt the relationship, and sometimes we avoid them because we don't want to negatively impact our own reputation, and because sometimes we think it's like not going to work anyway to have those conversations. And so a big thing that I help people with is how to have those difficult conversations. And so let's take the one you said, for example, of this is going to cost more, or this is going to take longer.
It's going to cost more and take longer than we thought.
It's like bad news on all fronts.
It's a change. It was like, I thought this was going to cost $1 million and take, a year. It's going to cost $1.5 million and take a year and a half. Or whatever. And so I'm trying to have this conversation now. I'm blaming the client because you changed this, you changed that. you wanted all this stuff you didn't want before. There's all these change orders. It wasn't what I originally agreed to. And so it's going to cost more and take longer. But I've avoided this conversation because I don't want to upset you and lose you as a client. I'm trying to keep you as my friend, but
Yeah.
I haven't had fun.
Okay. So first of all, let's talk about there's two issues here. One is the issue that I've avoided this up until now. And so I'm telling you, and it's like I should have told you earlier.
Right.
Second issue is the bad news itself. So let's start with the first issue. So I am a big believer in owning what you can own. And so to say, I want to have a conversation with you, and I first want to say that I am sorry that I'm having this conversation now. We should have been having this a month ago, and this is on me. And it's hard for me to have these conversations, and something I'm working on. But I just want to own that I would like to be able to have these conversations earlier. Okay, so that's the first one. Second one is taking longer and costing more. And it was helpful that you gave me the context that the reason why it's taking longer and costing more is because the client has put more, wants more stuff, right? It's
or the
not,
other one is, or stuff costs more than we thought. Like we ordered the windows, and I thought it was going to take 2 weeks. It's going to take 3 months. The whole pandemic thing has been
okay, fine. But I just
right?
want to be clear, like you're giving me, just so I understand the situation, because it could be either let's work with the situation where it's not the client's fault or fault. I don't mean fault, but like, it's not that the client changed what they wanted. Let's just separate it out. It's
Okay.
that the window, it's the supply issue. It's something
Supply
that
chain got all messed up, right? And stuff costs way more than we thought.
okay.
We underestimated it. And I know the window should have been X, but it's Y. And contractors have these conversations all day long, and they hate it.
Yes, of course. So a principle that you can apply here is to get on the same team as the other person. And it can feel like you're not on the same team. When you have to give someone bad news, it makes you feel like you're on the opposing team.
Like we're in conflict. Yep.
And it's very helpful to the person you're talking to if you can help them see that you're on their team. And one of the ways that you can help them feel like you're on the same team is by you expressing how you would imagine they would feel. So it's by you saying something like, these windows were supposed to be in, are supposed to be in by next week. And you have, this is, you've been waiting for this for a long time. Like, you've been very patient. This is, I can imagine if I were in your shoes, I would be super frustrated that they're not here. And I want to give you giving them the sense that it's just as important to you as it is to them. And you understand why. You understand where they're coming from. So they feel understood. They feel like, okay, he's on my team. He's like, he and I want the same thing. Once someone feels like you're on their team, which of course you are, you are on their team. You don't have to make this up. But once they really feel like it, and they feel like you're as frustrated as they are, and that you're like, you want the same thing, now they're ready to listen to here's what's going on. So you've established you're on the same team. You've established you want the same thing. So here's what's going on. And then you explain the issue. And you explain, you're doing everything you can, and you're just as frustrated as they are, and that you're going to keep them updated. And so that's I would say that's the high level advice. And then let's say they say to you, because let's say it's a particularly difficult client, and they say to you, "Oh God, this happens every time." They tell me it's the supply issue, and like,
your contractors are all the same.
You contractors are all the same. Okay, let's say they say that you contractors, they say something like that, right?
Right.
Contractors are all the same, okay? And then instead of defending yourself, before you defend yourself, match their tone. Take a moment. I call this technique matching the tone of the skeptic. So in other words, before you defend yourself, you say, yeah, I could see how from your perspective, you're saying like, who is this guy telling me that X, Y, and Z, right? Like all the contractors is the same. I just want to get my windows done. Okay. And they're nodding their head and they're saying, exactly. That's what you want. Okay. Now they feel understood. They feel seen. Okay. So here's why we're not all the same. And here's why, here's what I'm doing to help you.
Okay.
Okay. Now, obviously there are situations where the person is just way too difficult, and and I'm sorry about those situations. I would say more often than not, you can, if you get on their team, help them feel understood and speak from that, like from an honest perspective, more often than not, these situations can actually bring you closer, like can actually like help your relationship with a client. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So this is a different industry, but I think it's relevant. So in the hotel industry, like Marriott has found that the highest recommendations, like the highest reviews from their guests, come not from the people who everything goes perfectly, right? It's not from the people who like nothing goes wrong. The highest reviews come from the people who had problems, who like the air conditioner didn't work, something needed to be fixed, and where the hotel went above and beyond to solve the problem. So that is very interesting, right? That sometimes when things go wrong, it is an opportunity for you to go and be above and beyond.
So what you're saying, excuse me, is if instead of the opportunity to destroy, there's a conflict. It's an opportunity to build a relationship, not destroy the relationship.
Exactly. To build the bond. Yeah.
Right.
That you leave the relationship feeling like, yeah, that wasn't easy, but we did it together and
Right.
I can count on you.
So that sounds like a tough switch. I mean, I'll give you an example. This is happened to me last week. A client, this is really true. He was going to move into his house, right? But because he got the thing postponed and he was upset with it, and he had this vision of what moving into his house was going to be like. Mm-hmm. So he didn't experience the move-in bliss that he had anticipated, right? I've been looking for this and he withheld $80,000 from my contractor because he was not disappointed in the moving experience. This is a true story. It wasn't what he expected. So he's holding 80 grand, thinking that's fair compensation for a bad day.
That's terrible.
True story.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. So what happened?
What happened? You're saying,
yeah,
okay.
Like then what happened?
Well, right now they're still in an argument. I mean, they're still like trying to negotiate it out. He's going, that's ridiculous. And the client goes, look, I had a bad day. Probably the truth is the client's figuring out a reason not to pay him, but that's the one they came up with, right?
So, I mean, this is a very tough situation. And again, this is not, I don't want to by any means make you think I'm not a negotiations expert.
Right.
So I'm not a small claims.
No. But we're trying to figure,
but what I will say is that this would have been a situation where when you see that the experience didn't go as well as it could have, to proactively do something to show you care, right? Maybe it's sending them flowers. Maybe it's I don't know, dropping off a gift or something that shows that on an emotional level that you get it and that you care. And maybe that helps, and then if the person says, I'm not paying because I had a bad day, before you explain why that is absurd, right? You first validate the bad day in a real level. Like you were looking forward to this the whole time. Like you had this picture in your mind of like what this day was going to be like. And then it totally didn't work out that way. And I am really sorry about that. Like if I were you, I'd feel really disappointed about that. And this is an agreement that we made, and I want to see if I can find another way to show you that I feel for you, but it's not going to be $80,000. Right. It's like it's being clear on what your expectations are while also being clear in your empathy.
Right. Okay. So what you're saying is the contractors out there can use a potential conflict, which happens all the time, whether they're not paying the bill, they're not paying. I mean, everybody starts out, oh, we're going to build this beautiful house and it's wonderful. And then it sort of goes, you know what? It's like, right, over time. So
Yeah.
what you're saying is with the right skills, which you can teach, and someone I would teaching was a good person who knows how to communicate, that you can turn this conflict into a way to build a relationship instead of destroy it.
Yes. And of course, not 100% of the time, but
Right.
that's the idea. And very often these relationships deteriorate because the conversations happen too late.
Right. So if you're going to give contractors maybe 2 or 3 bits of advice on how to turn what, the relationship which has gone south into a way to build versus destroy the relationship, because when they end up in court, it's never good. Mediation is never good. All that costs everybody money. It's not a good thing. So what would be like 3 pieces of advice you could give my audience here, our audience, the people that are listening to this, that would help them turn potential conflict and a way of destroying a relationship into a way of actually making a better relationship out of it?
Great question. So I would say, first of all, to build those kinds of conversations into the initial like establishment of the relationship, right? To when you're having that initial, like, everything is going to be great. Like, we're going to build this home together. It's cost even less than we thought it was, right?
Right.
Build in, I have been down this road many, many times. There are going to be things that are going to go wrong. And one of the things that separates, like, that makes the relationships that I have with my clients work is that we communicate about them. And so there's going to be
Right.
times where you're not happy. There's going to be times when the supply doesn't work. There's going to be times when things, and like, to anticipate that and establish beforehand, we are going to talk about that. Okay. So
Okay.
that's the first thing I would say.
First, there's actually a thing called the emotional roller coaster, which one of my friends have written. And what it has to do is it shows that we're going to love each other, we're going to hate each other, we're going to like each other, we're going to be pissed off. And it looks at like the process when it goes into, drywall, you're going to hate it, it's going to be a mess. And it anticipates the disasters that are going to happen and explains, you're not going to like me here. Let me tell you, I guarantee you're going to be pissed. And I think that's probably a good thing.
And we're going to get through it.
Through it, right.
Okay. We're going to get through it. Okay.
Right.
So
Okay,
there's, okay. All right. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is communicate early, right? Is that when issues come up, talk about them.
Okay.
And lead with empathy. Lead with getting it, and that gets back to getting on the person's team.
Mm-hmm.
When an issue comes up, communicate that issue as if you were the customer, as if you were the client.
You want to get on that your side, their side of the table, so to speak.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And and don't be afraid to apologize. Right? Like, don't be afraid to own if you made a mistake. And you can also establish that in the beginning. You can say, I'm going to do my best if, like, to take responsibility. I'm not perfect, right? One of the things that makes me an exceptional, you can say, one of these things that makes me an exceptional contractor is the fact that I can own mistakes, that I'm not perfect, that I know I'm not perfect. None of us are. But it's the people who can own them and then fix them. Those are the people who rise to the top, and that's me.
Right. Okay.
So you establish that from the beginning, and find those ways to make the person feel appreciated and understood, and keep the bond. Like, have in your mind, like, keep the bond. Keep the bond.
Okay. And what's the third one?
Oh, that was like a bunch.
So no. You only give me 3.
Let me outline. I'm going to put them into 3 groups.
Okay, 3 blocks. That'd be
okay, because I get it. So the first group we're going to say is about what you do beforehand when you're establishing the relationship, is like, establish how you're going to keep the bond at the outset through clear communication.
Okay.
Second group is like the timing of when you talk about things. So talk about things when they happen. Don't let things percolate. And the third thing is get on their team. Speak about it away from their team.
That's awesome. Well, this has been incredibly informative. I'll have to start practicing myself. Can I start with my wife? Just kidding.
Oh, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? This is like this is all about relationships.
Right. And how to keep and maintain good relationships through good communication. Well,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay. Well, I mean, it's been incredibly helpful. I appreciate it. And I want to get on your side. I want to make sure we communicate early. And I'm not sure when this is going to go up. So you may be upset with me because it takes a while.
I already feel, I feel like you're on my team.
Okay.
I feel the bond.
Oh, good. Okay. I appreciate that. Cool. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate you being on the program, Sarah. It's been incredibly helpful. I never realized I needed a person like you. Now I know I do. So thanks a lot. If people want to get in touch with you to learn more about what you do, how do they connect?
Look up my website, GreenRoom Speakers.
Okay.
GreenRoom Speakers, Sarah Gershman, greenroomspeakers.com. I also have like a bunch of articles that you can read, mainly in the Harvard Business Review. But I do work, by the way, I do work with a fair number of contracting companies, and so and also I've done several home renovations.
There you go. You can empathize, right?
Yeah, and thankfully I've worked with wonderful contractors.
That's good. That's very good.
I will say that we've managed to keep the bond over the years, which I'm very grateful
awesome.
for.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Sarah. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
A pleasure. Talk to you soon.